In June of 2004, the MMORPG MapleStory released an item that helped revolutionize the way modern games would monetize their teenage customers: the Gachapon ticket. Using in-game or real-life currency, players could purchase these tickets and click a button to receive a random item from a predetermined pool. The items were distributed in a tiered probability system, meaning that you had a high chance of receiving a common item and a very slim chance at receiving a rare or legendary item. And because of the way this system was designed, it encouraged repeated spending and became very psychologically addicting to the average young MapleStory player. Despite the controversy for its similarities with real-life slot machines, many video game companies took note of the profits that could be gained from implementing a system like this. And so, the teenage online gambling boom began. FIFA introduced their own version of Gachapon tickets in the form of what are known as packs on Ultimate Team in 2008, Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike created loot boxes in 2010, and now virtually every AAA game in this $100 billion industry has integrated a randomized item economy that can turn virtual luck into real-life financial gains. The stories from teenagers who lost their money on these games are extremely depressing to read, but this was just the beginning. These days, young people don't even have to resort to a video game to get their gambling fix. All they have to do is open up an app on their phone and start depositing money. So today, I want to explore this ever more prevalent teenage gambling epidemic, how predatory the online gambling industry is, the shady practices and loopholes they exploit, and how this could ruin the lives of future generations. What makes something addicting? This is what we need to understand first if we want to understand why people continue to come back to a system that they know is designed to make them lose money. Well, the most alluring thing about gambling is that it has a lot of anticipation behind it. You have no idea what type of reward you're going to get from putting your money down, but you know you have the possibility of getting something really good. And because of this, there's a huge production of dopamine in the brain. A common misconception about dopamine, which is a word that we hear all the time now to describe addictions like social media, is that you get a ton of dopamine when you do something addicting. But really, you produce the most amount of dopamine from what happens before you do it. If you've already won anything from any sort of gambling experience, you know what the feeling is like when you get something unexpected that makes you happy. It leaves you feeling super accomplished, and the thought of recreating that experience moves your body towards another session before you even have time to consciously think about what you're doing. So it's really the thought about potentially hitting that rare win when you gamble, or in other words, the anticipation of the reward rather than the actual reward itself that makes gambling addictive. And so all of these elements combined together, with added visual and auditory cues like engaging texts and sounds, brainwash you into thinking you actually have a shot at making more than you spend. Unfortunately, the brain did not evolve to be able to tell the difference between healthy and unhealthy dopamine triggers, and the companies that design these systems know this. If these companies don't have a strong enough moral compass, they are willing to target the most susceptible, vulnerable demographics in order to make the most amount of money possible. And teenagers fit that bill very well. Oh, a fun way to get better items in a video game? Sick, let me go get my mom's credit card. 5 years later, and they've put themselves into thousands of dollars of debt just for the potential of packing a 99 rated Team of the Season Ronaldo. No! To be fair, I don't blame them. I mean, look at that card's stats. That's just unfair to play against. Teenagers also tend to have a higher sensitivity for dopamine releases and have less of an ability to assess the risk of gambling their money away due to their brains still being in development. I'm going to be showing some studies that reveal the absolutely disastrous effects that gambling can have on teenagers when they become adults near the end of this video, but first I want to answer a question you might be wondering. How the hell is any of this legal? Or at least, why isn't it better regulated? Well, gambling in video games specifically falls under this gray area of legality. For one, video games don't fit the traditional definitions of gambling. Virtual items technically have no real-world monetary value, and the ones that can be converted into cash are typically done through third-party websites. The prizes are not legally recognized value, and so these companies can get away with replicating gambling to underage teenagers in this form. That means as long as we can educate children on these exploitative practices that are found within video games, we can prevent more of them from becoming lifelong gambling addicts, right? Well, I don't know if they're gonna listen to you, especially if the people they spend most of their day with, their favorite influencers, have started to promote online gambling too. And in 2018, a new wave of influencers exposed an entire generation of kids to this sinister way of spending money. But first, let's talk about another industry that loves to feed on our addictions, the food industry. These days, we have food that is bioengineered to be as dopamine-inducing as possible, and that's why it's all the more important to be making more of your food from scratch with ingredients you can actually recognize and pronounce. And to help with that, I have partnered with today's sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a meal kit service that delivers step-by-step recipes and fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door. It's perfect for people who want to know exactly what's going in their food, but can't be bothered to spend hours searching for the right ingredients and recipes. You can choose from 50 delicious recipes that are put together by their chefs, and I recently made their roasted zucchini and garlic flatbread. A lot of you still don't know this, but I love cooking for myself and making basically all my meals from scratch, and this recipe was absolutely fire. It tasted like a really fresh white pizza that you'd get from a restaurant, and all the vegetables were surprisingly high quality. What's also really cool about HelloFresh is their new Build a Plate feature. Basically what they do is provide the main dish component, but also give you various different sides and toppings to add on so each of your family members can personalize their plate based on their meal preference. It's a really awesome service that's influencing more people to cook from scratch and get better at cooking, which I believe is one of the most important skills you can develop. So if you are interested, you can click the link in the description or use my code, which is COLDEC10, and get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while the subscription is active if you're in the US, and outside the US, the local discount will apply. Around the year of 2018, it wasn't uncommon for popular streamers on the streaming platform Twitch to go live and start opening up the types of loot boxes and packs I've already gone over in this video. It made for entertaining content, and while it did definitely influence many of these young kids to gamble their own money away on similar items, they at least weren't risking anything of their own when they were watching a stream. However, one gambling company saw how popular loot opening streams were amongst the youth and wanted to take advantage of this naive generation. And that company was Stake. Stake.com was launched in 2017 by Australian billionaire Ed Craver and co-founder Bajan Tarani. Fun fact, they actually got their start in the gambling scene on my favorite game of all time, RuneScape, with its in-game currency using a type of game similar to dice rolling. Stake was revolutionary in the gambling industry for several reasons. The first was that it allowed you to use cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which were gaining a lot of popularity at the time, to gamble your money. This allowed people with investments in crypto to use whatever those coins were valued at the time to potentially make even more money, even though that's not really how gambling works. But along with that, Stake was also one of the first companies to really popularize massive gambling sponsorships with some of the biggest streamers in the world. Streamers like XQC, Adin Ross, and Trainwreck began live streaming these websites and their bets to millions of young viewers, many of whom weren't even old enough to legally gamble. And the worst part about all of it was that it wasn't even their own money that these streamers were gambling. Not only was Stake paying these streamers flat sponsorship fees, but they would also fund these creators' accounts on their platform with their own money. So whatever money the streamers ended up losing didn't come at a financial risk to the creators. And for the final cherry on top to further boost profits, streamers received affiliate links that earned them commissions from users who signed up through their unique link and subsequently lost money on the platform. It's insanely sad, but also kind of insanely hilarious and dystopian to think about. You have a bunch of teenagers coming in ready for a night of watching their favorite streamer, and then that streamer says, "Hey, I know you watched me win once and lose 100 times, but you should use my link to start gambling." And then they sign up, they put in money, and they lose that money for zero gain because of their streamer that they looked up to, and part of that lost money goes back to the streamer that fueled their impending gambling addiction. Though the exact numbers aren't known, the biggest gambling streamers on Twitch were making close to around $1 million per month from these sponsorships. And screw teenagers, even if you aren't 18, you can find a loophole to start your gambling addiction early thanks to the anonymity of the internet and the power of fake IDs. Again, you have to ask the question, how the hell does Stake and other platforms get away with stuff like this? And again, the answer is that they're very good at working in this legal gray area that I discussed earlier. Because the main currency used is cryptocurrency, it's very hard to track and regulate who is using the site and how much they are spending. Stake also became a licensed gambling website under Curaçao e-gaming, which is an e-gaming jurisdiction located in the Southern Caribbean. What makes Curaçao so appealing to a company like Stake is that, while it technically qualifies as a gambling license, it's not recognized in stricter jurisdictions like the United States, United Kingdom, or Australia, and has much looser regulatory oversight. But luckily, enough of the right people eventually made this issue apparent, with 20 to 25% of Twitch's user base being under the age of 18, and many other popular streamers speaking and making videos about this exploitative practice. Twitch made the decision in October of 2022 to ban streaming gambling platforms like Stake and Roulette off of their platform completely. Unfortunately, by this point, the damage was already done and it was too late. With the billions of dollars amassed from their success, Stake went on to make a Twitch competitor called Kick in the same year that gambling was banned. And Kick is still extremely popular today, paying streamers hundreds of thousands of dollars to promote Stake to young, impressionable viewers. Hell, they even paid Drake $100 million annually to promote and stream gambling across all of his social media accounts, a deal 10 times larger than many professional athletes.
Come on now, give us something crazy here.
Ooh.
But a Drake sponsorship was just the beginning. Now Stake can be seen virtually everywhere with sponsorships across several sports, including UFC fighter Israel Adesanya, English football teams Gillingham, Watford, and Everton, Indian football club Mumbai City, USA cricket, and Argentinian footballer Sergio Aguero. It's safe to say that online gambling is basically inescapable at this point. Everywhere you look, you will be subconsciously taking in an ad for online gambling. But we haven't even gotten to the type of gambling that is most popular amongst teenagers. And this one might just be the worst of them all. If I asked you what was the last commercial you saw during a live sporting event, what would you say?
FanDuel.
The crown is yours.
On America's #1 online casino.
And this is no ordinary betting app.
Yeah, I figured. When the Supreme Court overruled the federal ban on sports betting in 2018, just about every state in the US legalized it, and online sports betting in the form of mobile apps exploded in popularity. It took something that many teenagers are already invested in, sports, and made even the most crappy, boring teams or sports exciting. These apps start with an irresistible, seemingly harmless offer. We will give you money for your first bet or let you try again if your first bet doesn't hit. This lures in new customers with no real cost to these companies because, as we now know, they're too busy making billions off of the people who are already addicted. Then, to increase the excitement and odds of you losing money, they've now added in what are called parlays. Parlays are basically just a large bet with 2 or more smaller bets, known as legs, within it. So for example, let's say I'm watching the NFL games on Sunday. I could make a 3-leg parlay where the first leg is for the Chiefs to win their game, the second leg is for the Eagles to win their game, and the third is for Josh Allen to throw 4 touchdowns or more. Little side note, that last leg will always hit because Josh Allen's the best quarterback in existence. Go Bills. Since you are placing multiple bets in a single parlay, the risk is higher, but the payouts can be much more. But in order for you to win that parlay, every single leg within the parlay must hit. If just one of them loses, then you lose all of your money. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Well, Cole, why don't you just make a bunch of parlays on sports that you know with absolute certainty will hit? You know, sports are much more predictable and statistically researchable than gambling, right? Well, no, unexpected results happen literally all the time in sports, and most likely if you're already hooked into this online sports betting world, you're gonna start creating parlays on shit you have zero knowledge on. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a Snapchat from a friend watching some random international basketball or hockey team with the caption, "Don't know what I bet on, but this parlay will send me to the moon if it hits." And just like Stake endorsed big streamers and celebrities, all of the online sports betting apps like DraftKings, FanDuel, and BetMGM have paid celebrities millions to promote their apps and have plastered their ads across every single inch of advertising space they can in the locations where sports are taking place. While the age to participate in these apps, like gambling websites, is still technically 21, there are thousands, if not millions of of teenagers under the age of 21 watching these commercials, being naively influenced by their favorite public figures, and shaking with the excitement at the thought of getting rich in a single day. Many of these teens are finding ways to sign up for these apps without needing to verify their age, and that's without mentioning the offshore sportsbook apps that exist that don't require age verification at all. This teenage gambling problem is genuinely becoming an epidemic, and now I need to tell you what the consequences of this are before it gets any worse. Okay, we all know it's addicting by now, right? But just how addicting is it? Well, there are many studies that indicate a gambling addiction triggers the same brain areas as alcohol and drug cravings, suggesting a shared neurological basis. The parallels between gambling addiction and substance abuse have even led experts to classify gambling disorder as a behavioral addiction in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, solidifying its recognition as a serious public health issue. A national survey of 18 to 22-year-olds found that 58% of respondents have placed at least one wager this year. A majority of underage gamblers typically bet between $1 and $50 and lose between $10 and $300 a day. And if the addiction continues to develop into your later years, when you start to build a foundation of disposable income, it can and will destroy your life. There are countless stories you can read online in forums and articles of people losing their houses, their jobs, and their families over gambling. It should be taken as seriously as drug addiction is, because at the end of the day, it is like a drug. Hopefully, as this problem starts to get more attention, it will have appropriate laws and regulations enacted surrounding it in the same way that drugs and alcohol eventually did. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments below, and if you've ever got sucked into online gambling, it would be cool to hear your story. And if you enjoy these video essays that I make on modern issues, you can check out the whole playlist so you don't become susceptible to modern scams and stuff like that. And I'm leaving. Goodbye.